Everyone. I think we'll have a few more people coming in as we start. So the next guest is the person I call when I'm looking for somebody expert worldwide to talk about shared ownership. Sometimes they actually take my call. This is a person who, if they were a professional athlete, they would be a fan favorite. I'm about to welcome to the stage the President and Managing Director of International Operations for Travel and Leisure, Barry Robinson. Okay, Barry, we've known each other for a few years. All right, so travel and leisure.
20 years, I think.
Yeah, 20 years.
Maybe longer.
Back when we were both 18 years old.
Yeah.
So travel and leisure. It would seem pretty clear to me that you're in magazine publishing. So
Correct.
Tell me, if you can, a little bit about yourself and what travel and leisure does.
Yeah, I've had that a lot during the event so far. But so we're a spin-off of Wyndham Worldwide. Like most international hospitality companies, though, we're going asset light. At the time, we're one of the largest shared ownership companies, and we spun off from Wyndham Worldwide back in 2018. And one of our strategic objectives was to find a brand that was brand agnostic, so that we could venture out and focus on our expertise, which is developing shared ownership businesses and clubs. And fortunately, we convinced the Meredith Group to acquire the Travel and Leisure brand, and basically have done a reverse licensing. So they still produce the magazine. We have access to all the content, but our parent company is Travel and Leisure. And under that, we operate the Wyndham Vacation Club. We recently acquired the Accor Vacation Club. We have Margaritaville. And then most recently, we did a deal with Sports Illustrated to operate and develop the Sports Illustrated resort brand. And so, what I like about, our model and where we're heading is that we are asset heavy. We do construct, we do build assets, and we operate, and sometimes we have our partners operate on our behalf.
Yeah, so you're both an owner, an asset investor, and an operator. You and I were both in a meeting a few months ago with your global CEO, Mike Brown, and he made a comment that I found very interesting. He talked about travel and leisure and how travel and leisure had really become a company, I think in part through the acquisition of the brand Travel and Leisure, but it really become sort of a steward, a trusted partner in safeguarding brands. And I think one of the tie-ins between the business that you're in and the business that a lot of us are in as either operators or IP owners or licensees of those brands is that issue of sort of being a trusted partner and safeguarding brands. I think resonates pretty strongly, certainly with the operators and the IP owners in the room. But I'm curious if you could expand on Mike's comments further and tell us sort of what your relationship is with the Wyndhams, with the Sports Illustrateds, with the Margaritas, with the Accors.
I mean, probably the good example was, convincing, it's taken me actually 15 years to buy the Accor brand or Accor Vacation Club or get the license from Sebastian. So that took a while to convince him that we were the right partner, that we were going to protect the brand, and the rationale behind getting Travel and Leisure, so that we're brand agnostic, and very much we keep the brand siloed. Data is very secure, that orientates towards that brand. We target different brand segments, just basically like a hotel company, which is really my background anyway. So we're really mimicking what most hospitality companies do. We just don't have yet 47 brands like Sebastian does, but maybe one day we will under the portfolio.
So you've got aspirations. There are other brands that you look at that you think would be adaptable to the shared ownership space.
Yeah, we'll see other brands, and some of them will be pure hospitality brands. Some of them may not. A little bit like Sports Illustrated isn't as such a pure hospitality brand, but what it does, especially in the United States, which you know, it resonates well where we're going to develop in the university cities in conjunction with the universities, develop a whole community around the sporting program.
Very good. Presumably a younger demographic.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry. Okay.
Barry, now that you got a mic that's going to work in your hands, this is probably a good segue. I think one of the things that's important in this space, shared ownership is a pretty broad concept, and there's a lot of individual products that sort of sit underneath that, that go by different names, depending on the market, or fractionals, timeshare, vacation ownership, vacation club. Can you walk us through that landscape and help us understand it? Maybe starting with a nice tight definition of what shared ownership is.
Well, I mean, shared ownership has been developing. It's not new. It started back in the 1960s, with a Swiss family, deciding to buy into the Swiss Alps and divide their house up into 3 or 4 parts with other partners. And it sort of has evolved from there, and into a whole lot of different iterations. But, we've seen shared ownership develop in all other markets as well. We've got jet share, car share. We've got even now in luxury goods that people are sharing luxury clothing items, artwork now. And what we've found is that it's resilient through a whole lot of different markets. For our business anyway, we've been able to ride out the storms during economic crisis, but also, flourish during the good times. And so, the Middle East market's exciting for us. We will be entering here. We've been working with the Russell Kaiman government to launch a legislation in that market. We're working with the Dubai government bodies to try and get a legislation that's both consumer friendly and business friendly. So that's probably one of our criteria as a global company, which also protects the brand, whichever brand we're operating in those markets.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to sort of drill in there a little bit further. You and I have had these conversations, and I think a lot of folks looking at the opportunity in Dubai, if you think about the success criteria that really make for successful shared ownership markets, and the markets and the destinations that are probably the most successful in the world, the Orlandos, the Hawaiis, Vegases, Mexico to a certain extent, many observers have seen a lot of those characteristics in this market. And that sort of talk's been going on, not just for a few years, but really dating back to pre-global financial crisis. And yet, we haven't fully realized that potential. I'm wondering why you think that is, and are we now finally approaching that opportunity? Are we going to realize what a lot of us have been talking about for some time?
Yeah, the first time I came here was, I think you were there as well back in 2005. And the market's really developed and matured globally. Back to my point earlier, I think legislation is a really important part because, we've seen other markets crucified in all sorts of segments if there isn't the right regulation behind whatever product that may be, whether it's car share or whatever. So, for me and the way that the market's developing here, we're excited about the opportunity as well as the product. The product has evolved as well. We've learned a lot over time. I think, we've just launched a product recently in Asia, which is a shorter term product. It's, 20 years, but it's a 20-year ownership. So the beneficial interest goes back to the consumer, where a lot of the older products, that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
So we've tried to develop something that I think is going to work well within the Emirates. And we'll be launching, later this year in this market.
Yeah, very good. Two things I'm gonna, because we're running short on time here. One, can you give us a little bit of a flavor globally of the size of the business, and then relate that, if you could, back to what, from your perspective, looks like, paint us a picture, if you will, of an ideal shared ownership opportunity in Dubai or Ras Al Khaimah.
Yeah, so the market's, getting close to $30 billion a year on revenue, and, we're a reasonable part of that. We're doing about $10 million US a day, which was interesting. I tried to equate it back down to a day in shared ownership sales. So, and if you look at the number of people that have brought shared ownership, I was looking before, if we could attract less than 10%, that would be 1 million visitors coming into the Emirates alone, which I think is a great addition to tourism. Ideal product is a mixed-use product. So for us, if we're looking at the ideal product, it would be a 400-room hotel with, we would probably take down, somewhere between 100 and 200 shared ownership units with residential, and then, the full services. How it works well for the developer is that we contribute to the overall running of the property. And even we've seen in markets through COVID, when properties are running low occupancies, the vacation ownership owner still tends to show up and is still paying their maintenance fees, which supports overall viability of the product.
Yeah, very, very resilient model. Well, I think, Barry, we'll wrap there. I want to thank you for joining us. I think it's a very interesting opportunity, clearly for operators, for brands, for investors, and those that are invested in hotels, and a lot of interesting synergies, not only between vacation ownership components, but potentially branded residences and, of course, the hotel assets. So thank you very much, Barry. Great to spend some time with you.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.